Okay, this is Super 7 Donatello. This is the last of the 4 basic Ninja Turtles that Super 7 need to release to complete the team. So, nice little outer box there, as all Super 7s have. Let's get right into it. Once the shipper box is off, you've got this wrapped in plastic. Once the plastic is off, you've got a slipcover with a picture of Donatello. That's his expression with the little bow staff designs on there. And, you know, classic logo on the back. And once you get the slipcover off, this is what you're looking at. Very nice presentation. As always, Super 7 does a great job. If you want to read the write-up on the back, here you go. Pause it. Let's get this guy open. So here we go. Out of package, Donatello. Right away, first impressions, I like it. I mean, I've liked all 3 of the other Turtles, and this one is basically the same figure, just, you know, decoed different. One of the first things you may notice is that he's a much more brown color than the other Turtles. Now, they all had their unique green skin tone, and Donatello is no different with the uniqueness, but he's always been a little more brown in the early Playmates days. So I'm bringing in a re-release of the original Playmates Donatello right now, and you can see that they pretty much... It's slightly different, but they did capture that skin tone pretty well, in my opinion. I'm pretty sure that was probably just an attempt to differentiate the Turtles even more. So obviously when they made these toys, they changed the mask colors for every Turtle, and they probably just decided changing the skin color would make them a little more unique too. So if you're new to Super 7, basically what they're doing is taking the original Playmates figures and pretty much remastering them for modern collectors, or, you know, old people like me who grew up with the old ones that want to spend money on better versions. I don't know. Here we are. And getting up close, you can see that they captured the facial likeness in there too. This is pretty spot on to what the original one looked like here. This one does have some paint in between the teeth too. I know I mentioned Leonardo did not, whereas Raphael and Michelangelo both did, I believe. So just something to notice, something that sets them apart differently. Another detail to point out is the belt. Every one of these Turtles has had different belts with like different metallic paint hits on them. Donatello seems to be pretty absent of all of that. Now Leonardo had like a brighter silver buckle and little strap holder things. Raphael had like a gunmetal gray. I think Michelangelo was pretty solid. He might have had some gray tones to it. But Donatello seems like his belt is basically all black. And that goes around to the back too for his like bow staff holder and his little buckles and everything that he has back there. So you can kind of see there's this little hole right here on the belt of the original figure where you could stick like a little weapon or a throwing star or something. Super 7 does not have that, so if you're looking for a place to stick a throwing star or something, I don't know, find somewhere else. So he articulates identical to the other 4 Turtles. If this is your first time, you get a little side to side of the head, you get tilt, pretty good. Little front and back, he can look down about that far and up about that far without using any of the other joints. The shoulders, you get a full range all the way around the figure. They will spin all the way around. It will be hindered a little bit by his shell, but not too bad. You can get him up about 90 degrees. He does also have a bicep swivel, so you can get some articulation up there. Single hinge at the elbow will get you about just under 90 degrees probably. Hinge at the wrist, which on these hands that come out of package, it'll go back and forth like that. There are other hands that he comes with which go in and out, which we'll go over, as well as a swivel at the wrist as well, because you just pop these out and put the other ones in. So no real articulation in the torso, but a lot of cool detail. You can see like little scrapes and scratches on the front pauldron part of his shell. He's got like a weathered look to his belt. These little buckles and everything, they're sculpted on there. As I mentioned, they're not really painted, but the back of the shell, he's got like his little wraparound thing for his bow staff to be sheathed. The shell has the same kind of little imprinted designs on it with like some scratch marks. So they did a good job here. At the hips, at the waist, you get a little bit of a rock motion to be able to kind of balance him in different ways. He can do a pretty full split. You'll have no problems there. He can kick forward about that far, and that's pretty much straight out in front of him as much as the shell will allow. Back, you're going to have some issues just because he's going to run into the back of the shell, so you'll see that it's hindered there. He also has a swivel integrated at the top of the thigh that you can see in there, so that works pretty well. There's a single joint at the knee, which will get you, again, just under 90 degrees. And then at the foot, you get a really good ankle hinge here that gets him pretty much all the way down, all the way up, as well as a really excellent ankle rocker that will get you pretty much any range of motion, any wide stance you want Donatello to stand in, he can probably hit it. So yeah, as has been discussed before, Super 7 does not make the most articulated action figures you've ever messed with, but the articulation they have works well, and it makes for a really clean aesthetic. You don't have peg holes all over the figure, which, I mean, it doesn't bother me per se to have peg holes on the figure, but I do appreciate the lengths they go to make the presentation look really clean. So for that, I applaud them. Again, you can buy more articulated versions of the Turtles out there if you'd like. go knock yourself out. They're out there. I have them. I like them too, but we're talking about this today. So let's see what else he's got. He includes an alternate head, which is based on kind of an original concept design for the Super 7 turtles. They all come with these. Donatello just has kind of a stern expression. He's, either deep in thought or meditative or like about to fight. Not an overly like super expressive head sculpt, but certainly a nice one. I can appreciate what they did here. And you'll be able to get all the same range of motion out of this head as you would the original stock one. Yeah, so you can tilt side to side, twist, little up, little down. It's a snug fit on there. It was easy to pop the other head off and put this one on. As far as for extra hands goes, he comes with these, which are C-grip open hands that are very similar to the ones he comes with out of package. The only difference is these have a hinge that goes the opposite way. So in other words, rather than going like up and down at the hinge, these will go in and out. So just a different way of having him grip his weapons. He does come with 2 closed fists as well, which are included with every turtle except for Raphael, because Raphael comes with the different hands that can hold his size better. And he also comes with these open kind of gestural pose martial arts at the ready hands. Cool stuff. They all pop on and off very easily. I had a couple different hands on the figure before, so you just pull them off, put the new ones on, you're good to go. I will say that he also has these fingernails that are painted slightly differently. There might just be a little gloss on them, I'm not sure. But Michelangelo, I think, was the only one who didn't have different color nails than the rest of his hand, but Raphael and Leonardo both did, and they went back to that for Donatello, so that's cool. Accessory-wise, you're looking at a sliced pepperoni pizza. I believe this is probably the same pizza that comes with some of the other turtles. You've got an open communicator. You've also got a closed communicator. Interesting note that actually somebody pointed out on my Michelangelo review, but he didn't actually come with any communicators, so I guess nobody's calling him. I don't know. He's got the 2 little daggers. He's got the shorter one and the handheld, aka travel dagger. I'm gonna have to straighten these out too. They got a little bit bent in the package. 2 little throwing stars, which are always cool to have. So by now I've got like a little stack of these somewhere. And of course, the Kama, the most important weapon in the turtle arsenal. I've been talking about this for all the other reviews. You tie a string at the top and you can send them on down the stairs if you have this, so awesome. And just one thing to note very quickly, now that I got the accessories for the other turtles out, the communicators are different. You can see Leonardo's and then Raphael's and then Donatello's is the one on the far right side of the screen. And they are painted slightly differently between the 3 of them, so, you know, I like that little detail. And of course, you can't have Donatello without his signature bow staff. Now this is, there are 2 different ones that come in the package. They're slightly different, but I think that's just down to, you know, just paint variation. It's not really, it doesn't look like they're intended to be different, but, you know, they are just ever so slightly. So, enjoy. And of course, if you'd rather just kick it old school, you can have this entire weapon rack where you can disassemble it, pop the weapons off, and just use the plain brown plastic weapons if you want to really replicate the old days. I'm probably just going to leave these alone. As I've said in previous reviews, this is cool to have, but it's not really going to be my thing with these new figures. So here he is with the bow staff. Right. If I have one issue with the figure, it's that the bow staff is very short. I know that if you're a collector like me and you collected other action figures or just Ninja Turtles like for a long time, you probably have plenty of other bow staffs that you can substitute for this one. But yeah, this one barely comes up to his shoulder from the ground, and you know, this is obviously the same thing. It's well detailed, well sculpted and everything, but it's just going to look short in Donatello's hands. Now the original Donatello bow staff was more proportionate to the figure. I believe it was about as tall as the figure was, and this is, as I just showed, nowhere near that. So in my opinion, they missed the mark with this. Again, I have spares, but if you don't, this is what you're going to be dealing with. Now if we're putting size to the side for 1 second, detail wise it is a nice looking bow staff. He looks cool with it. You'll be able to pose him looking, you know, like he's in a fight, or you know, getting into a martial arts pose, whatever you want to do with it. He will be able to probably hit that pose. Detail wise, looks good. Ultimately, staff, I just wish the staff was a little longer. And no, I'm not doing the that's what she said thing. Grow up. The bow staff does fit very snugly into the sheath thing on his back. You can stick it in and out very easily. Again, you know, I'm not doing it. But yeah, he looks cool with it. Again, carrying it around, this isn't going to like really hinder his range of motion too much because there's not much of it like taking up too much space around him. So it's cool. So here's a look at him with some of his other weapons. You can see that he can hold the throwing stars in between his fingers as well as grip them in between his thumb and forefinger. The compartment on the back can be used to store his Kama if you want. It's a little loose in there because it's meant to fit the bow staff, but I don't think this is bad. And there's also a little space in between the side of the body of the figure and the belt, so if you want to stick his communicator or the smaller dagger, that should work pretty well. So Donatello can go into battle pretty well armed. Here he is in a nice little battle pose with the other 3 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from Super 7. And I gotta say, when I first got Raphael, in the video I said that I thought he was a good figure, but maybe not necessarily a great figure. However, I did add the disclaimer that once the other Turtles came out, I would probably grow to appreciate Raphael more. And turns out that's correct. Now that I have all 4 of them, and I can, you know, mix and match the parts and the weapons and kind of like just appreciate them for extremely well done callbacks to the original figures that I had as a kid and so many other people had as a kid. Man, this is a nice set. I'm really glad I got these. So here's the 4 main turtles just stood up, vanilla posed. Something I noticed actually standing them up beside each other, it looks like there is some slight variations in height, but I do think that it's mostly just down to the way the heads sit on the pegs. So you'll notice Donatello and Raphael are slightly taller than Michelangelo and Leonardo, but again, I think that's just, you know, the way that the head has the hole for the peg cut out of it. But yeah, you can see they look great together. The slight differentiations in like skin tone, well not slight, but the different skin tones that they all have really work for the 4 turtles. And yeah, the expressions on their faces have the classic Playmates looks of, you know, just the figures of yesteryear, which is exactly what they were going for, so I think they got it. And here's the differences from behind. You can see that all 4 shells are also slightly different color. Now I pointed this out in earlier reviews, but now they got Donatello, you can see that his is very close to Michelangelo's, but I don't think it's exact. And it's not even one of those things I'm positive of, because as I look at it with the naked eye, I'm wondering if it's just playing tricks on me because of the contrast of their 2 skin colors against the shells that's messing with my eyes maybe. I don't know. Point is, they look very similar and the others are slightly different from that, so you will get variety out of basically buying the same sculpted figure more than once, which I do appreciate. And here are the 4 of them with their alternate heads on there, and these do look very good together. I did mention previously that the alternate heads reminded me of the early IDW comic book art. I think as I see the 4 of them together, I get the appeal of these alternate heads more than I did previously. I was just somebody who was buying these because of the throwback Playmates nostalgia factor that was kicking in. However, it is entirely possible for me to just decide one day like that I'm gonna use these heads for a display instead and just be able to alternate based on my mood. So yeah, Super 7, thanks. You guys won me over with these. They're well sculpted, they're well painted, and they do capture each turtle's personality pretty well in my opinion. So yeah, great. Just something curious that I wanted to point out. Raphael, being from Series 1, is still a much stiffer figure to work with. His articulation doesn't seem like it wants to cooperate quite as much, whereas with Donatello's it's a lot more streamlined. The figure is much easier to move, get into different poses. The heads pop on and off a lot easier than Raphael's do. I'm not sure if that's just down to this figure being early where they hadn't quite like ironed out the details yet, whereas with Donatello he's much more refined because this is Series 4 compared to Series 1. Just something to note. I'm curious if you've got Raphael. Is yours particularly difficult to move around when you compare him to the other figures in the line? Or is this just kind of a one-off thing that I'm dealing with? Interested to hear your feedback. Let me know. So for size purposes, here he is with several other domestic Donatello figures. You've got the original one that I showed there, or that's actually a reproduction, so basically any figure that's based on the original mold. You've got the 2012 Classic Playmates series. You've got the 2007 TMNT movie. You've got the 2003 basic figure from the TV series, and then you've got the 2012 basic Playmates figure from the TV series. Obviously these are all wildly different scales, so they're not all going to be compatible, but that's just going to be what it is. And just an interesting side note, if you have either this 2007 CG movie Playmates figure or the Playmates 2012 Classic Collection figure, each of them comes with a bow staff that's much better proportioned for this figure in my opinion. So if you look, these are the 2 that come with the Super 7 figures, and yeah. So if you're somebody who has one of these 2 figures in your collection, this is an option that you could have to give him a much more accurately scaled bow staff. Just something to think about. So here he is with some more collector-oriented versions of Donatello. This is the Neca cartoon version. This is actually the second release. The first ones have the darker colors, and then there's of course the Disguise 4-pack. All of them feature the same body, so this is about the scale you're going to get on all of them. This is the Mirage original comic book Donatello. This is the Neca 1990 movie Donatello, and that is the Revoltech 2012 series cartoon Donatello. So yeah, these are a little bit closer scaled than like some of the old like Playmates toys where they're all like about half the size of this guy. So if you're into the more collector based lines, this is kind of the scale and the sizing you're going to be working with here. So here's how he looks with various figures from the Neca collection. You got Rocksteady, Splinter, Shredder, and one of the Triceraton infantrymen. And I think this scale, you know, it's not perfect, but you can play with it. It works pretty well. And, you know, if you're into photography or animating or whatever you want to do with your figures, just setting up displays, I think you can make this work. These all seem like they'll work fairly well with each other. And here's how he compares to Super 7's versions of Bebop and Rocksteady. Now I know you might remember me saying back in the day that I was only going to go in for the 4 turtles on the Super 7 line, but I walked into Albany Comic Con a couple weeks ago and Dead End Threads was there, shout out, and he had all the Super 7 stuff for just retail price without shipping. So, you know, I could justify it to myself that I'm already here at the con, I could buy these, they're different enough from the Neca ones, let me just part with my money. But yeah, happy I got them, and you can see now I can do better comparisons, so these look good together. Here he is with Vader. Final thoughts. I really like it. I mean, it comes as no surprise because I knew I really liked the other 3 turtles that came out first, but yeah, having Donatello is kind of an extra little bonus because you complete the collection of all 4, and now you can finally display all 4 of them together, or, you know, set them up on a shelf, or do whatever you want to do with these 4 guys, and I think as I've gotten the chance to mess with them a little bit, they look great together. People have said their piece on Super 7 over the years of being either maybe a little too expensive or being less articulated than other different versions of the Turtles or like any characters really. And while they've got a point, you got to know what you're getting into with Super 7. Now with me, I understood that it was going to be a different kind of figure than some of those other ones, and therefore I wasn't disappointed when I got it, and it was pretty much exactly what I expected it to be. So, you know, hopefully if you're somebody who's on the fence or you're not sure what to expect from these figures, I hope this review helped and you can figure out if this is something you might want to add to your collection or not. I will say that my only major gripe with this figure is the length of the bow staff. I do feel that it should have been longer, or at the very least they could have included a second bow staff with a much more accurate length. I think that would have done wonders for this figure's overall appeal. But that said, I mean, that's kind of a minor thing for me. As I showed before, I have other bow staffs that I can use for this figure. Not going to be the end of the world for me. But if you're somebody who doesn't, I just want to make you aware that that's an issue you may run into, and, you know, if you want to find another figure with a better bow staff, go for it. Or just buy a dowel rod and make your own. They're pretty easy. They're really just sticks. So is the Super 7 Ninja Turtles figure collection perfect? I mean, I don't know about that. Like, I do appreciate them for what they are, which is a throwback to the original Playmates line of the late 80s and early 90s, which somebody like me grew up with, and that's kind of how I define my memory of Ninja Turtle action figures. Now, there are people much younger than me watching this video who grew up with the 2003 cartoon or even the 2012 cartoon, and they might have no interest in these, which I understand. It's kind of a you had to be there, right time, right place kind of a thing for a lot of people. But that's what Super 7 is as a company. They cater to collectors who have fond memories of the toys they had when they were younger, and they want people to be able to experience a much better, updated version of that figure they enjoyed when they were a kid. Now for me personally, as I mentioned earlier in the video, I was just going to go in for the Turtles, and then Super 7 did that dirty move where they started making different versions of the Turtles available, which I was like, well, okay, that still counts, so got those on pre-order. And then they did the Mouser pack, and I was like, well, okay, at this point, at the time I'm recording this, Neca hasn't released any Mousers, and I still got the old Playmates ones from the 2012 cartoon, but, you know, let's go. They look fun, and even if Neca does them, they'll be based on the cartoon, and they'll look different anyway, so why not? And then I found Bebop and Rocksteady for regular retail price, and I was like, alright, I guess I'm picking and choosing different Super 7 figures now. So I know that my space, my budget, all of it, I can't get too carried away because I've really just got no place to display all this stuff. But there are some really stellar looking figures coming out, particularly Slash. I really like the way he looks. So he's somebody I'll probably consider picking up. But yeah, okay, I'm done talking about other figures that have nothing to do with this one. We're going to talk about this one. Overall, very good. I do like it. Like I said, the staff should have been longer, but the other weapons are just as well done as they always have been across the line. His articulation is what it is. If you know what you're getting into with Super 7, then you will not be disappointed. The alternate hands, the accessories, the paint apps, the different deco hits, on my figure they're very clean, so hopefully you won't have any issues there. Overall, very happy that I bought all 4 of these Turtles. I'm pretty sure Super 7 has made them all available again, so If you missed out on the first releases or the first pre-orders, don't worry. I'm sure you'll have a chance to get them again if that's your thing. Anyway, my name is Captain McKay. Thank you so much for watching it. So if you like this video, hit like and subscribe and, you know, leave a comment. You know, take care of all that stuff for me. All right. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. Later on.